Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Oh Shoot. Surprise. Hello. You don't normally hear from me on a Friday, but my dog just rang the bell to go outside. Hold on. All right, I am back. Appa has gone outside. Sorry about that. Thank you guys so much for listening on this random Friday. I just figured with the episode that I did this Monday, it was like just a little over 30 minutes. And I was like, you know what? You guys should get more than that. Like, I just feel like that's not really fair. So here I am recording another episode for you guys. For today's episode, I have gotten a lot of DMs. I've received, that's a better word. I have received a lot of DMs asking about our road trip in March. And I'm assuming a lot of people have asked about it because of the fact that it's summer and, you know, people have free time and you're going to go on trips and travel. And I get that. And you want just some advice. You want some ideas of where you can go, things you can see, all those things. So that's what we're going to talk about in today's episode. This is a little bit more of a personal episode, but you know what? It's my podcast and I want to make a personal episode, so that's what I'm going to do. There's going to be maybe a few photography tips here and there in this episode, but I think for the most part, we're just going to talk about my road trip, kind of talk about logistical things, and yeah, that's going to be the episode. So if that's not really something that you're interested in, that is fine. I will see you on Monday for the next episode I have. So let's talk about my road trip. Before we do that, let's see, what is going on today? Charlie is out of town working with his friend on landscaping. So I'm here by myself, but I'm going to go stay at my mom's because why not, right? Like she lives like 20 minutes from me. So me and Appa are going to go there. And then I have a wedding tomorrow, which technically I guess would be today because the episode is coming out tomorrow, but today. So yeah, we have a wedding tomorrow in Traverse City, Michigan, which is a really pretty area of Michigan. If you're not from there, then I'm sorry. If you don't know what that is, look it up. It's really pretty. But yeah, that's where our wedding is tomorrow. And I'm very excited. If you are like me, busy season literally snuck up on me so quickly and kind of just smacked me in the face. Like, if I'm being honest, all of a sudden it was like April, I didn't have anything. May, I was kind of busy. July, we're in June. I'm sorry. June hit and I'm just like, whoa, I have so much going on. I have weddings back to back to back to back. Like, this is crazy. So if that happened to you, just know you're not alone because it also happened to me and I don't really know how it happened. So here we are. We've got lots of stuff to do and I'm not complaining. I mean, I love shooting weddings, obviously, like this is my job. So I'm not complaining. All right, let's talk about my road trip because I know you guys are all itching to just hear all about it. And I'm actually going to share with you guys like practical things for like planning a road trip. I'm obviously going to tell you what path we took and all the places we went, but I'm also going to tell you like the process of like what it took to plan this trip. Because if you're listening, you might have an interest in planning a road trip. So I just thought that would be a helpful part. I also do have like a big notebook full of all the stuff that we like planned for our trip. So I can share all that with you too. So first I want to talk about how to plan the trip. And then I'll go through and tell you guys basically everything that we did on our trip and the exact road trip that we had. So first thing that you want to do is brainstorm all of the places that you want to go. And me and Charlie did this very simply by just like going on a map or like, I don't know, going through, I don't know, like literally we Googled like places to go on a road trip in the US and we just found a bunch of cool places that we were like, oh, I want to go there. Like, oh, we should check this out. And then obviously we had places in our head of like ideas and things that we've seen before that we have wanted to go visit. So like one thing for Charlie was he really wanted to go to Breckenridge, Colorado. Our road trip was kind of like national parks based, but because that was something that he was just really interested in, we were just like, okay, we can do that along the way. Like that's a must for our road trip. So we basically brainstormed all of the places that we would be interested in seeing. And looking at a map as well helps, because if you know, like, I want to go on the west coast of the US, or I want to travel on the east coast of the US, or wherever it is that you want to travel, look on a map of that area too, kind of based on the places that you want to see, or, only name places that are in the area that you're going to be traveling, because, you don't want to be all the way on the east coast of the US and then all the way up in Alaska in like 3 days. That would be absolutely horrible. I don't actually think that would be physically possible if you're in a car. So just write down and brainstorm the places you want to go. Then figure out the places that are musts. So like I said, for Charlie, it was Breckenridge. For me, it was Horseshoe Bend. That was a place I really wanted to go. And once you have the places that you absolutely have to go, then it's really easy to plan the trip, honestly. I like to talk to Charlie about like our purpose, like why we were taking the trip. If you're taking your trip by yourself, this is kind of just like an internal thing that you can do. But for me, it was like, I wanted to know why are we taking this trip? Is it for work? Is it for personal? Is it a little bit of both? That way you can have your expectations like set right away. And you just know like, okay, I'm going to work this trip, or this trip is 100% personal, or you know what, we're going to do this location is personal, this location is work, or this day is work, this day in the same location is going to be personal, because you don't want to go into it winging it when it comes to work versus personal. You want to have those things laid out so you can be prepared. I mean, if you want to be working in Zion, okay, like advertise for Zion, like book shoots there, or, make sure you have Wi-Fi, things like that. Those are things that you need to plan ahead, because if you just show up and you're like, oh, today's a work day, but you're in Zion, it's so beautiful, why are you working? So it's like, figure out what your intentions are with your road trip, with each spot. So then you can know, like, if you have a day you have to work, like let's say you have a call you cannot miss on one of those days, make sure you have a hotel room that has good Wi-Fi, or make sure you can make the call on the road, because that's like actually something you have to think through, like actually. So next thing, talk logistics. Are you going to be flying? Are you going to be driving? Are you going to be staying at hotels? Are you going to be camping? Are you taking a camper van? Are you half flying, half driving? Are you renting a car? Like all of the logistic thing of like, okay, how is the actual road trip going to happen? That's something that you gotta know. Like you have to know that going into the road trip. So for us, I don't know if you guys remember this roller coaster of emotion, but we had a camper that we had ready, and we were going to pull a camper and camp at all of our spots that we were going to go to on the road trip. Like that's what we wanted to do. But for mechanical reasons, we weren't able to take that camper because our car that was towing the camper was in the shop. So then we had to figure out plan B, which was driving in our Prius and getting hotels along the way. So logistically, you have to figure out like, okay, how is this actually going to happen? If you're doing driving, who's going to be driving? Like, are you splitting it, or is it multiple people that are going? If it's just you, are you prepared to, pull over and take naps at a rest stop? Like those are things logistically that you have to think about, because if you plan on going from like Utah to Yosemite, that's like a 12-hour drive, I think. So like, be prepared. Are you okay if you're going by yourself? Are you okay driving 12 hours by yourself? Like, and just making stops for gas and food? Like, think about those things logistically, because that does really impact the trip, and kind of leads to my next point, which is logistically pick out your dates. So when you're picking out your dates, you also want to think about travel time. So you want to know where you want to stop along the way. And I guess like I never really expanded on my first point, which was list out your locations. At this point, then you want to look on a map and kind of pull up all of your locations that are options and see like, okay, these 3 locations are all kind of in the same area. So maybe we should do like, I should do all of these locations, and then let's drive to California. And then there are 4 locations in California I want to go to. And then let's go here. There are 2 locations there. And then let's go back. You have to think about like what locations make the most sense, because if you're doing like a bunch of national parks that are so far away from each other, you have to factor in travel time. And is it even worth you going to all of those spots? Or maybe it's worth you staying in one spot where all of the locations are like, I don't know, just a couple hours apart from each other versus like a day trip to your next spot. Like actually think about that. Think about how long you want to be gone for. If it's a month, okay, in a month you have time to go to lots of places versus if you're doing just a week road trip, you're probably not going to be able to go like cross country and back unless you literally want to drive for the entire time. So you want to pick your dates. You want to pick out travel time. So you need to know how long it takes from each location and then figure out like, okay, if we are leaving and we're going to go to Yosemite for 3 days and then we're going to leave on this day and it takes 8 hours to get to my next spot, which is in Oregon, let's say. And so it takes 8 hours to get there. That's going to be a whole day of driving. So then the next 2 days we want to spend in Oregon and we want to hang out in Oregon. And then we're going to drive another 12 hours to this spot. So that's a whole day of driving, 12 hours. Or maybe you break 12 hours up into 2 days. Maybe you stop somewhere along the way. Those are things you need to think about because the more you have that planned out, the less you can stress about like, when are you going to get home and all of that stuff. So plan out your travel times, literally write down how many hours it's going to take for you to get from one place to the other and plan accordingly. So if it's going to take you only 6 hours to get from one place to the other, maybe you can hang out in the spot that you're at for half a day and then you drive at night 6 hours to your next spot. You want to book shoots or just like book work along the way once you have your locations and your dates. So if you know when you're going to be in Zion, try to book work. If you want to work, book work then in those dates. So, post it on Instagram, post about it in Facebook groups, reach out to people that you know that are in that area or just like, you know what I mean? You have to get creative with it. But if you want to be booking work, this is the time to do it. Once you have your trip planned out and it's like, okay, this is what we're going to do, then go ahead and start booking shoots if you want to book shoots along the way. If you don't want to book shoots and maybe you just like can't book shoots, maybe that's not an option for you. Maybe you plan like, I don't know, like self-portraits or something, like get a fun dress and or like a cool outfit. I don't know. And take some cool self-portraits of yourself. Like if you want to work, but maybe can't find the work to shoot someone else or maybe can't find paid work, then offer to do a session for free or do self-portraits. Like those are all great options to still be able to build your portfolio as you're traveling. Obviously, if you don't want to build your portfolio, then don't. I'm not going to force you. And the last thing for like the planning part is booking hotels a few days before or possibly a few weeks before. So if you are doing hotels and you're not camping, book hotels and Airbnbs a few days before, with the exception of if you're going in the summer and you are going to very popular spots, then you might want to be booking those hotels and book those places basically as soon as you know your dates. So for example, Yosemite is a very popular place to go in the summer. And I'm going to be honest, there's not a lot of places to stay around Yosemite. So my guess is that Yosemite books up really, really quickly. I mean, even when we went in March, it was hard to find a place to stay in Yosemite. So keep that in mind. Like, know how popular the areas are that you're going to and book your hotels accordingly. There were some places that I was able to book the night before. So when we went to Portland, that was easy. I just booked that literally on our way to Portland. It was easy. But, other places that are a little bit more remote, so even a place like Zion, that might be a little bit harder to book. So think about booking things in advance, definitely. Another thing as well, like look up the places that you are going to go before you go there. So I think it's Yellowstone right now, just had like a huge flood and like an entire road that goes to Yellowstone is completely washed away. And they're like, it's closed for the season. But that's something that you wouldn't know if you just showed up to Yellowstone and it was all closed. That would really suck. So that's just something to know before you go. Like look up the places you're going to go. Another thing with Yosemite, there are some popular hikes that are closed. Like they were closed in the winter. Some of them are closed permanently for 2022 and reopen in 2023 because they need construction. So look into that. Look to see, like, do I need permits for any of the hikes I want to go on if you're going on hikes? That's a great tip from myself, from me to you, is when you do figure out your locations, if there are things you want to do in those areas, try to book them as soon as possible, because you never know how soon things book up. So I know that there are really popular hikes in certain areas. Even like, for example, we were at Horseshoe Bend, and I had no idea that right in that same area was the Wave, which is like a really, really, really cool hike. But I didn't know you needed a permit for it. I wasn't planning on going anyway, but I was like, oh, I wish I would have known that was around here, because then I would have tried to get a permit either like this morning when the day of permits opened, or I would have tried to like do the lottery thing where I could get a permit for my date. So yeah, just think about permits, think about hikes. There are obviously like free options for a lot of the places you go, like free sightseeing. But if there's something that you're really drawn to, that you're really wanting to see, definitely plan that in advance. There are pros and cons to spontaneous road trips. A con would be spontaneous road trips do not always let you do everything that you want to do, especially if you need permits. So that's basically how we planned our road trip. Once we had all of our dates, locations, like figured out what we wanted to do in each spot, how long we wanted to be there, I booked stuff. It was just a matter of, okay, let's go and do it. And I think the other thing was kind of prepping random things we would need for our road trip. So it was really helpful to have portable chargers. So helpful. That was like a huge thing. Car chargers. It was helpful for me to be able to edit in the car. So I had like a little thing where I could plug my laptop charger into it if I needed it. For Appa, it was really nice to have just random, like we brought a little backpack for him. That was nice. Like, think about the random things you're going to need and the random things you need to bring. When you stay in hotel rooms, sometimes you want a meal, but you don't want to go out and make something. So we brought like packs of ramen, which was really helpful, because then we brought our water heater, we could heat up water, or we brought the water heater also so we could make like drinks. So Charlie made coffee, I made tea. So those are all things to think about when you're going on a road trip like this. Like, what is going to make it the easiest? How can we be the most prepared, so then we don't show up and we're like, oh crap, we forgot all of our camera gear and I forgot about the fact that I need socks. Like, you got to be prepared. So now we're going to go and talk about my exact road trip and everything that we did on our road trip. Got my notepad. So we decided that we wanted to go to the following places. Okay. We went to Zion first, then we went to the Grand Canyon, Yosemite, Redwoods, Pacific City, that's part of the Redwoods, and the Grand Tetons, Mount Rushmore, Breckenridge, and then we came home. We actually didn't end up going to Mount Rushmore. We ended up staying longer in the Tetons and then longer in Breckenridge, and just cut out Mount Rushmore altogether. Also with the Redwoods, we actually ended up staying in Crescent City. So Crescent City to Pacific City. So this is exactly what we did. I'll tell you how long we stayed everywhere, all the things. Remember, we only had, we only wanted to do 3 weeks at the most. So we were on that time frame. I had shoots booked. So it was like, we couldn't really change much. And we had to start at Zion because I had a photo shoot in Zion. That was the first thing we needed to do. And then we came back around to Breckenridge. So if you have a map and you feel like following along with everything I'm saying, then go for it. If you don't, then just know it basically was a big circle. So we went from Michigan, we went straight out into the middle of the US. Then we went down to Zion. And then like all the places we went brought us up to California, up the coast of Oregon, and then back towards Michigan, but a little bit higher all the way home. So that is basically like, it was kind of like a big loop that we did. And we planned all of our, dates and locations based on the loop, right? Like, that's part of the planning process. Like, that's what helped us. Okay, let's go. So we started at my house, right? And it took us 2 days to get to Zion. So we left on March 9th and we arrived on... Oh, that's not right. I think we left on... Oh, no. Wait. I am so confused. Okay, just know it took us 26 hours to get to Zion, which for us, we can do 12-hour days. So it was like 2 days in the car, basically. So we left, took us 2 days to get to Zion. When we got there, we arrived basically late at night, and then we were there for one full day, and then we had another half of a day there, and then we were driving 5 hours to the Grand Canyon at night. So 5 hours to the Grand Canyon. We wanted 2 full days at the Grand Canyon. So we arrived, we did like the night in the Grand Canyon. So we basically just arrived at night in the Grand Canyon. Oh wait, no. I'm sorry. My notes are a little confusing actually. We didn't do 1.5 days in Zion. We just did 1 full day in Zion and then left in the morning in Zion to get to the Grand Canyon. It only took 5 hours. So we got there like basically at noon or like 1 in the middle of the afternoon. And then we had a half a day in the Grand Canyon, 1 full day in the Grand Canyon. And then we basically, at the end of our full day, drove to Horseshoe Bend, which is like only 2 hours from where we were. So we were at the south rim. If this is too detailed, I'm so sorry, guys. We were at the south rim of the Grand Canyon, and Horseshoe Bend is kind of near the north rim, and it took us 2 hours to go from the south rim to the north rim. So we stayed one night at the south rim when we got there, and then we hung out at the south rim for the day, and then around like 3 or 4 p.m. we drove up to near the north rim where Horseshoe Bend is, and we did the shoot at Horseshoe Bend, stayed the night there, and then in the morning we drove 13 hours to Yosemite, where we had 2 full days. So we arrived 2 full days in Yosemite, then we left and drove 9 hours to the Redwoods. We actually drove through, this takes you through San Francisco, and we got to Crescent City, which is basically like a city near the Redwoods. We didn't really find any places to stay like in the Redwoods. I know there are places, but I just couldn't find anything that I liked. So basically we were in the Redwoods in Crescent City for 1 full day. So we arrived at night, 1 full day in Crescent City. We left on the 19th and drove up to Pacific City, where we spent the night there. And the reason I went to Pacific City was because I wanted to go to Cape Kiwanda, which is where I had another shoot. And Cape Kiwanda, we were in Pacific City for 1 full day, did the shoot at night, and then we left to drive 14 hours to the Grand Tetons. And I'm pretty sure we broke this up because we drove from Pacific City at night. We went and stayed in Portland, and we were in Portland for a full day, and then we drove to the Tetons. So Portland was like kind of on the way to the Tetons for us. So then we arrived at the Grand Tetons, and we spent 2 full days there. I had shoots during that time, 2 full days. And then we left on, sometime in March, towards the end of March. And we actually drove right to Breckenridge. I don't actually think we didn't do Mount Rushmore. So it was like maybe 9-10 hours to Breckenridge. We got to our hotel, and we were there for 1 full day. So we got there at night, 1 full day at Breckenridge, did a shoot at night. Oh wait, actually this list that I wrote is like old because we ended up changing it kind of while we were on the road. Instead of going to Mount Rushmore like we wanted to, we actually drove from the Grand Tetons to Denver. Okay. So we went to Denver and spent 2 nights in Denver, and then drove from Denver to Breckenridge, which was literally only like 2 hours or something. And then spent 1 night in Breckenridge, but we were in Breckenridge for the whole day. We checked in at night. Actually, I think it was 2 nights in Breckenridge. We did a shoot there. And then from there, that was our last stop. And then we went home, and it took us 20 something hours to get home. So we stopped somewhere in Nebraska along the way and then made it home. And I know that was a lot, but it was so fun. And our goal was to do the national parks. Like that was just our goal with the road trip, was to see kind of like little previews of every national park. We did a good amount of hiking, but there's only so many hikes that you can do when you're only in a national park for like a day or two. So the places that we felt like were really big and like we couldn't explore in just one day, I would put 2 days for that area. So Yosemite was 2 days. I didn't love being in Yosemite for 2 days because it was like the winter season and there wasn't a ton to do. So, but I mean, that was fine. It still was really pretty. And then the Grand Canyon, I kind of wish we had more time in the Grand Canyon. We only spent, I think it was like 1.5 days there. But I kind of wish we had like 2.5 days because there are so many hikes and like fun things to do at the Grand Canyon that I wish we could have had more time doing. So yeah, I mean, I feel like all of the locations we went to were exactly what we wanted. Like it was exactly what I wanted, basically like little previews of each spot. I definitely loved Horseshoe Bend. I wish I would have done a little bit more research on like places we could go and get permits for, like unique, really cool places, because we really just went to like the easy, accessible places that didn't need permits or anything. But I wish we would have done like 1 or 2 like really cool things, like bucket list things. But I mean, it was a bucket list to go see these places, but I think like that part of it, I wish I would have done a little bit more planning as to like what we were going to do in each spot. Like I basically planned out our hikes, but I think other stuff like, okay, like we got done with our hike, now what? I think that stuff I wish I would have done a little bit more research on, or just like planning longer hikes so then we could like do it for the whole day. And that's the thing, if you are like wanting to go to like these national parks where there's tons of cool hikes, definitely bring a hiking backpack, hiking boots, but also like you don't necessarily need like a water pack and like a ton of like backpacking gear if you're not actually going backpacking. Like me and Charlie would go on these relatively easy hikes where it was like, I don't know, maybe 2 hours at the most. And we'd see people with like the most intense hiking gear. It's like, you don't really need that intensive hiking gear for like this hike. It was basically just like a stroll in the park. So don't feel like you have to overdo it and spend tons of money on stuff. If you like to be prepared in that way, that is fine. You go do it, you be prepared. But I think sometimes like we feel like we need to go buy a bunch of stuff in order to go on a road trip like this. And you don't. Like you literally just need to know like your plan. You don't need to buy like a ton of like gear or anything crazy like that. Unless you are doing something that needs gear, then obviously you need gear. Okay, so that's going to be today's episode. Literally me just talking about our road trip. Yeah, I'm excited for this summer. I didn't like say this on any of my previous episodes, but like I have a feeling this summer is just going to be so fun. I mean, we're getting our pool and yeah, it's just going to be good. It's a hot girl summer and all the vibes are here. So yeah, that's it for today's episode. If you guys ever have random suggestions or random things that you would like me to talk about on this podcast, always either DM me or comment. Like literally, I'm recording this episode because I got a few DMs and then someone commented and also wanted this episode. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this episode. So that's a great way to just pitch ideas to me. Comment your questions because I see them. Most of the time I see comments. I don't see all of them. But yeah, just know if you have ideas, we here at Cassidy Lynne, Oh Shoot Podcast, we're always open to them. And when I say we, I mean me. It's just me over here. But yeah, thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode. I hope everybody has an amazing weekend. And I hope you liked this bonus episode. Yeah. Okay. Have a great rest of your day.